My name is Dan Dorval, and I'm President and CEO of Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. I am an independent certified financial planner and author of my book, Financial Success for the Rest of Us, Reality-Based Financial Planning for Mainstream America.
Hi, my name is Leah Woodley. I'm an associate financial advisor with Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. Our conversations discuss what it means to do quality of life planning in all areas of your life. Dan, I recently saw a LinkedIn post that you made about people's obsession with avoiding taxes. Do you want to talk more about that?
But we see this a lot because so much of the financial services industry is focused on marketing types of tactics. And so, one of the very easiest things from a marketing perspective is to tell people, hey, we're going to save you on taxes. I never meet anybody who wants to pay more in taxes. And so, when they hear that, they naturally think, oh, well, maybe I'm paying too much and this person can somehow magically save me money on taxes. And what happens a lot of times is we'll talk to them about maybe what they've heard, what they've seen, what somebody has told them, and we'll say, okay, that's true. There's nothing wrong with that perspective, except in many cases, it directly conflicts with what brings them quality of life.
Mhm.
So many of those tax planning strategies are specifically for very wealthy people. Most of the clients that we help are not terribly wealthy people. They are wage earners of some type, so they get a W-2 type of income, and their taxes are pretty straightforward and simple. There's not a lot that they can do to specifically save taxes. Now, what they can do is they can defer taxes.
Mhm.
And a lot of people think that if I defer taxes, they correlate that to being like some sort of tax savings. So this would be, let's say I make a pre-tax IRA contribution today or a pre-tax 401k contribution today. I defer my taxes. So I saved taxes, but only today, instead of maybe doing like a Roth IRA, for example, which would be after tax contributions today. I didn't save anything today, but now it's potentially tax-free in the future. And so we look at these things as just being tools or opportunities to plan ahead for the future and focus more on aligning your resources with what brings you quality of life. Certainly not trying to pay more in taxes in any
Mhm.
way, but for the vast majority of the people we help, those projected tax savings are just assumptions and they
Right.
don't actually happen. So we prefer people to drive their decisions based on quality of life first. Tax savings or other more, I guess, gimmicky types of planning thoughts, those should come second. So never let the tax tail wag the dog. Make sure it's quality of life driving everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like you said, we've seen people come in multiple times with how do I avoid taxes? How do I minimize taxes? Is there a way to get out of paying taxes? And it's just like, yeah, focus on what's a priority for you, and that should be your quality of life. So, how would you suggest someone shift their perspective and overcome that mentality? I know it's if that's what you're being bombarded with on a regular basis, it can sometimes be challenging to not think about money in that perspective from a tax perspective. So, what suggestion would you make to help someone shift their perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's actually pretty difficult to shift that perspective with all of the noise of the world around us bombarding our clients with save taxes this way, save taxes this way. But I will tell our viewers there are essentially a few different ways that you can really truly minimize your taxes. And number one is just don't make any money. So don't grow your money, don't make more money, don't do any of those things. And when I say that, immediately it resonates with people like, well, I don't want to do that. Okay, well, it's one of the best ways to reduce your tax hit. Okay, number two is give the money away. So I could give it all to charity. Now I don't pay any taxes, right? But yet, for most people, again, they would look at that and they would say, Well, I might give some to charity, but I'm not going to give away all of my money to charity in order to just avoid taxes. And so when we think in terms of these things, like a lot of the tax avoidance strategies mean that you don't have access to your money.
Mhm.
So I might put it into different types of accounts or different types of investments that are illiquid, for example. I just don't have access to the money. So the biggest tip that I would give people is always come back to, what is this money for? And once you attach meaning and purpose to the resources you have, whether that's your income streams, whether that is your investments, whatever it happens to be, when I start to say, what is this money for? If somebody answers in some way other than just tax avoidance, which is almost never the meaning and purpose of money, okay? If they answer it's for some sort of goal, in most cases, it's now much easier to connect what am I doing with what is the purpose of the money.
That is so good. I think that is very important just to get back to the why. What is this for? How is this going to improve my quality of life? And like you said, it's never going to go back to taxes. So that is critical to keep in mind. And taxes are not a bad thing. Taxes are used to help support our daily lives. So don't look at taxes as a bad thing. Of course, you do want to not, you want to avoid overpaying taxes, but taxes are not inherently bad.
Well, and one of the things too is I've actually seen several examples over my career where people have come in and they said, Dan, what part of the reason I'm here is I want to make sure I'm minimizing my taxes. And I look at their situation and maybe they're retired, maybe they're not recognizing a lot of income at this point. And they're literally paying no income taxes. I've had this happen a couple of times. They're paying no income taxes. And they came to me and they said, I want to reduce my tax burden. And that tells you how strong this message is out to the public, that people who are paying little or no income taxes at this stage of their life, for whatever reason, they might be a student making almost no money, or they might be a retiree where for some reason, for a period of time, they don't have a whole lot of income. And they're still trying to focus on taxes rather than focusing on what's important to them. So when we see extreme examples like that, it really brings us back to how strong this influence is on our clients.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I had a situation going back to one of your previous points where someone was in a financial strain and their spouse just stopped working in order to not pay taxes. And I'm like, that's not the answer. It's not the answer. And you're right. We do see these extreme cases, and it's really unfortunate that the noise of this world has people's minds so warped to think that that is the response that they should have.
Well, and one of the biggest things for our viewers is so many of specifically our retired clients, they are under about $125,000 of adjusted gross income per year. Many of our retired clients are making 80, 90, $100,000 a year in gross income. And up to about 125,000 for a married couple is the 12% federal income tax bracket. And I tell people all the time, I love paying taxes in the first bracket, which is 10%, and the second bracket, which is 12%. And then once you go above that, it jumps all the way to 22. So now that jump is one that we want to pay attention to and make sure, like if we're jumping into that, it's for a specific reason. But for so many of our clients, if they're under that 125,000 of adjusted gross income, which is the bulk of retirees, there's only a
Mhm.
handful of retirees that are making more than that. For our retirees under that, their long-term gains tax rates are potentially zero
Mhm.
and their federal tax rates are 12%. We want to actually maximize that tax bracket if we possibly can, which means paying more taxes today, though,
Mhm.
than if we just kept deferring, deferring, deferring. But what we do is we'll see a lot of times people defer, 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 and they create a tax bomb down the road where they're forced to take money out, whether they die with it and it goes to their heirs, or whether they hit required minimum distribution age and they're forced to take out substantial sums. And now they get forced into maybe the 22% tax bracket. Maybe they have to pay higher Medicare premiums. More of their Social Security becomes taxable. I mean, there's a whole bunch of these things that happen to them. And all they thought was they were being smart by deferring, 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 and it didn't save them anything.
No, and that goes into what we talk about often is tax diversification, having both pre-tax and after-tax buckets of funds available to you. So, yeah. And one other thing I wanted to touch on is for those that are working, I know in the case I just mentioned, sometimes people are triggered because of a large tax bill that they've gotten hit with. And so now they just don't know how to respond to that. And it's as simple as just going back to your HR and updating your tax forms with your HR so that the appropriate amount of taxes are being taken out of each check. So you are not hit with one large tax bill when tax time comes.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. The other thing that we see sometimes is if somebody gets an unusually large, maybe they get a bonus.
Mm,
So they get a one-time chunk of money from their employer and they go, oh my goodness, I got killed on taxes because maybe 40% or more of their bonus was withheld in the form of taxes.
mhm.
And they think that they lost all of that money to taxes, and we just remind them those are your tax withholdings through your tax software. And then when you file your taxes, in most cases, you're going to get back. If your tax rates are lower than that, you're going to get money back rather than just saying, oh, well, I got killed on my taxes this year because I got a big bonus.
Right. Well, I hope this conversation helps someone focus on what the money is for. Don't focus on taxes. Anything else you want to add, Dan?
Yeah, I just think, having a plan, understanding this idea of, okay, I'm directing my resources for a specific meaning and purpose. It just, we can't overstate how important that possibly is and how that is the real value of financial planning and advice, not just tax avoidance schemes or things like that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having this conversation. And until next time, have a good one.
Thanks, Leah.